Title: The Secrets of Shadow Creek. Chapter 1: The Arrival. I arrived in Shadow Creek on a brisk autumn morning, the kind where the air is crisp and the leaves crunch beneath your feet. The small town was nestled in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, picturesque and charming with its old Victorian houses and cobblestone streets. It was a place where everyone knew everyone, and secrets were meant to stay buried. I wasn't there for a vacation. My name is Sarah Blake, a private investigator from the city, drawn to Shadow Creek by a case that had haunted me for years. My best friend, Emily Reed, had disappeared from here a decade ago, and despite all my efforts, her case remained unsolved. Now, a new lead had emerged, and I was determined to uncover the truth. The inn where I was staying, the Evergreen Lodge, was a quaint establishment run by an elderly couple, Martha and Henry Jenkins. They welcomed me with warm smiles and hot coffee, eager to share the town's history and gossip. But I wasn't interested in small talk, I had a mission. "Do you remember a girl named Emily Reed?" I asked Martha as she handed me the key to my room. Her face clouded with sorrow, and she nodded slowly. "Such a tragedy," she said softly. "Emily was a bright young girl. Everyone loved her. It's a shame what happened. What do you know about her disappearance?" I pressed, hoping for any scrap of information. "Not much, I'm afraid. She vanished without a trace. Some say she ran away, others believe something more sinister happened. The police never found any solid leads." I thanked Martha and made my way to my room, my mind racing with possibilities. Emily's disappearance had always felt wrong to me. She wasn't the type to run away, and there were too many unanswered questions. I unpacked my bags and set up my equipment, ready to start my investigation. Chapter 2: The investigation begins. The next morning, I headed to the local police station. Sheriff Tom Harris was a burly man with a thick mustache and a no-nonsense attitude. He seemed skeptical of my presence but agreed to let me look through the old case files. "Don't get your hopes up," he warned. "We've been over this case 100 times. There's nothing new to find." I spent hours poring over the files, searching for any detail that might have been overlooked. Emily's last known whereabouts were at Silver Lake, a secluded spot popular with teenagers. Her car was found abandoned, but there were no signs of a struggle. As I studied the reports, a name caught my eye: Daniel Whitaker. He was the last person to see Emily alive, and his alibi had always seemed shaky. I decided he would be my first interview. Daniel lived on the outskirts of town, in a rundown farmhouse surrounded by overgrown fields. He answered the door with a wary expression, his eyes flicking nervously around. "Daniel Whitaker," I asked, showing him my PI badge. "I need to ask you some questions about Emily Reed." He stiffened at the mention of her name but invited me inside. The house was cluttered and smelled of stale beer. Daniel offered me a seat and sat across from me, his hands fidgeting. "Why are you digging this up again?" he muttered. "It's been 10 years. Emily was my friend," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I need to know what happened to her." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "I told the cops everything I know. We were at Silver Lake that night, just talking. She seemed upset about something, but she wouldn't tell me what. I left around midnight. That was the last time I saw her." "Did she mention anyone? Was there anyone else there?" I probed. "No," he said quickly, a little too quickly. "It was just us." I left Daniel's house with more questions than answers. Something about his demeanor didn't sit right with me. I decided to visit Silver Lake myself, hoping to find some clue that had been missed. Chapter 3: The Lake. Silver Lake was as beautiful as it was eerie, the water shimmering under the afternoon sun. The place was deserted, the silence only broken by the occasional rustle of leaves. I walked along the shore, trying to imagine Emily's last moments here. As I approached the spot where her car had been found, I noticed something half buried in the dirt. It was a bracelet, tarnished and old, but I recognized it instantly. It had belonged to Emily. My heart raced as I picked it up, a wave of memories flooding back. I pocketed the bracelet and continued my search, scanning the area for anything unusual. That's when I saw it, a small, weathered cabin hidden among the trees. It wasn't marked on any of the maps I had seen, and its presence felt ominous. The door was ajar, creaking on its hinges as I pushed it open. The interior was dark and musty, filled with old furniture and cobwebs. As I explored, I found a stack of old newspapers in a corner, their headlines detailing various crimes and disappearances. One article caught my eye. It was about Emily. Someone had been collecting information about her case. A chill ran down my spine as I realized I wasn't alone in the cabin. I turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, watching me. It was Daniel. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the fear creeping in. "I should be asking you the same thing," he replied, his tone cold. "This place is off limits." "Why? What are you hiding?" Daniel stepped closer, his expression menacing. "You need to leave, now. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into." Before I could react, he lunged at me, and we struggled. I managed to break free and ran out of the cabin, my heart pounding. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of my car. As I drove back to the inn, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. Daniel was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. Chapter 4, Uncovering Secrets. Back at the Evergreen Lodge, I locked myself in my room and examined the bracelet. It was a simple piece, with a small locket attached. Inside was a photo of Emily and me, taken years ago. The discovery only strengthened my resolve. I decided to visit the local library to research the history of Shadow Creek. The librarian, Ms. Eleanor Wright, was a sweet elderly woman who seemed to know everything about the town's past. "Emily Reed," she said when I mentioned her name. "Such a tragedy. I remember her well. Always so full of life." "Do you know anything about the old cabin near Silver Lake?" I asked, hoping for a lead. Ms. Wright's expression darkened. "That cabin has a dark history. It belonged to the Whitaker family. Daniel's father, Harold, was a troubled man. There were rumors about him, about things he did in that cabin. The place has been abandoned for years, but some say it's haunted." "Haunted?" I echoed, intrigued. "By the spirits of those who suffered there," she whispered. "I've heard stories, but who can say what's true?" I thanked Ms. Wright and left the library, my mind racing. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together. Daniel's behavior, the cabin, and his father's dark past, it all pointed to something sinister. I decided to confront Daniel again, this time prepared for anything. I drove to his farmhouse, but he was nowhere to be found. As I searched the property, I noticed a path leading into the woods. It looked like it hadn't been used in years, but I followed it, hoping it would lead me to answers. The path wound through dense forest, the trees casting long shadows in the fading light. After what felt like hours, I came upon a clearing with an old, dilapidated barn. The door was padlocked, but I managed to break it open with a rock. Inside, the barn was filled with old equipment and tools, but it was what I found in the corner that chilled me to the bone. A hidden trapdoor, partially covered by hay. I pried it open, revealing a dark staircase leading down. Chapter 5, The Truth. I descended into the darkness, my flashlight cutting through the gloom. The air was damp and cold, and the silence was oppressive. At the bottom of the stairs, I found a small, underground room. It was filled with old photographs, drawings, and newspaper clippings, all about Emily. In the center of the room was a makeshift altar, and on it, a journal. I opened it, my hands shaking. The entries were written in a frantic, scrawling hand, detailing Harold Whitaker's obsession with the occult and his belief that sacrifices were needed to appease dark forces. The final entry was the most disturbing. It spoke of a ritual, one that required the life of an innocent. Emily's name was mentioned, her fate sealed by Harold's madness. As I read, I heard footsteps above me. I quickly hid, my heart racing. Daniel appeared, his expression twisted with rage and fear. "You shouldn't have come here," he hissed. "You don't understand. What did your father do to Emily?" I demanded, stepping out of the shadows. Daniel's face crumpled. "He believed he could gain power, immortality, by sacrificing her. I tried to stop him, but I was too late. He killed her and buried her near the lake. Why didn't you tell the police? I demanded. Daniel's eyes were filled with tears. He threatened me, said I would be next if I talked. And after he died, I thought it was over. I thought the secret would die with him. But it didn't, did it? I said, my voice shaking with anger. Emily deserves justice. Her family deserves to know the truth. Daniel looked defeated. I know. I never wanted any of this. I tried to move on, but it kept haunting me. Suddenly, a creak from above caught our attention. Someone else was in the barn. I grabbed Daniel's arm and pulled him into the shadows just as the trapdoor opened again. A figure descended the stairs, Sheriff Harris. What are you doing here? I asked, my suspicion growing. Harris's eyes narrowed. I could ask you the same thing. This is police business. You've been covering this up, haven't you? I accused. You knew about Harold's crimes, and you kept it quiet to protect the town's reputation. Harris's face darkened. You don't understand. This town is built on secrets. Some things are better left buried. Not this, I said firmly. Emily's death was a crime. And you're going to help us bring her justice. Harris glared at me, but he knew he was cornered. Fine, he said reluctantly. We'll do it your way. Chapter 6, Justice. The next morning, Harris, Daniel, and I went to the spot near Silver Lake where Emily was supposedly buried. We brought a team of forensic experts who began digging. It didn't take long to find her remains, a sobering confirmation of the horror that had taken place a decade ago. The town was shocked by the revelation. Emily's family finally had closure, and Daniel's guilt was lifted, though he knew he could never truly atone for his father's sins. Sheriff Harris resigned, unable to bear the weight of his complicity any longer. The cabin and the barn were thoroughly searched, revealing more evidence of Harold Whitaker's dark practices. The town's history of disappearances began to make sense, and slowly, Shadow Creek started to heal. Epilogue, moving forward. I stayed in Shadow Creek for a while after the truth came out, helping Emily's family and the town come to terms with the past. The case had taken a toll on me, but it also reaffirmed my belief in justice and the importance of never giving up on the truth. One afternoon, as I was packing up to leave, Martha from the Evergreen Lodge handed me a letter. This came for you, she said with a warm smile. I opened it to find a note from Daniel, thanking me for helping him face his past and finally bringing justice to Emily. He promised to dedicate his life to making amends and ensuring that no other innocent lives were taken in Shadow Creek. As I drove away from the town, I felt a sense of closure. Emily's spirit could finally rest, and so could I. The echoes of Shadow Creek would never be forgotten, but now they could fade into a whisper, a reminder of the importance of truth and the resilience of those who seek it.
Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can check out more videos like these right now.